it's worth it because we have people from 8, 9 years old to in their 70s that are coming out together and enjoying something, whereas what else would people be doing? Would they be on their devices? Would they be sitting at home alone? How would they be spending their time? And we're giving them an outlet. When we have our events, we're giving them that outlet to come and socialize and exercise as well.
Welcome into another episode of For Your Health, the podcast sponsored by Roane General Hospital, talking all things prescription for your health. And we have branched out a good bit talking about some people and their engagement with this program. Some people in the community who are involved in health and wellness in different ways, not necessarily associated with the For Your Health prescription for your health program. One of those today is Marie Hedges. We're happy to be joined by Marie Hedges. She is the Adolescent Health Initiative Project Coordinator for Patch. I tell you what, that is a mouthful, which is why I had to look down and read it to make sure I got that right. Thank you for coming, Marie.
Yes, thank you for having me, and thank you to Roane General for asking me to come on.
Well, you're a very familiar face, obviously, when it comes to Patch, when it comes to some of the programs that Roane General Hospital, Patch, Jack Garrett Ford have kind of combined with, and you've been a very busy face of a lot of these programs. I know you obviously from way back when, but in professional life right now, I see you all the time in many different avenues, whether it be the racing series for Patch, Jack Garrett Ford, Roane General Hospital, whether it be this new pickleball thing we're going to be talking about, or just random things that you guys do in different ways. Again, project coordinator means a lot of things when it comes to Patch. There are a lot of programs for Patch 21st Century, correct?
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, we have a great partnership with Roane General Hospital and Jack Garrett Ford, who are really important players in us putting these activities together. And we have a wide variety of activities that we've got going, whether it be the Corporate Cup, the race series, and now we're here today to discuss pickleball specifically.
Yeah, we just had a podcast that we posted a little bit ago talking about the Corporate Cup, and we talked with Kyle Raines and Quentin Keaton, of course, about how they've expanded that, and of course you guys are a big player in that as well. But we're not here to talk about the Corporate Cup just particularly. We're going to eventually focus on pickleball, this craze that is pickleball. But before we do that, not everybody knows who you are. Not everybody knows your history and why you're involved in what you're involved in these days. And in fact, I want to pick your brain as to why you are where you are now. But to do that, I want to go all the way back first. You were obviously very interested in sports, recreation, exercise, and wellness at an early age. What was your first real remembrance of when you got involved in sports? Obviously, basketball was a big player for you.
Yeah, basketball is definitely my main sport. My first memory, though, is probably playing softball. As I think a second grader, if I remember correctly, and it was not my cup of tea.
Did you find early on that wasn't what you wanted to do?
Yeah. So moved on from that, and I think maybe within the next year or two, got into basketball. So, and by the time I was in high school, it had really picked up and had really become something I was passionate about.
Well, obviously, you're way better than your brother ever was. We know that. But when did you figure out that basketball might be something that could help? Obviously, you're very smart too, and you were headed to college no matter what, but basketball became kind of an avenue for you as you went off to college.
Yeah, definitely. I think a key part of this was having a group of girls that I was regularly with and that sense of community, which is kind of what we're seeing here with pickleball as well. But just, I started in middle school, not only playing with girls here in Roane County, but also in Kanawha County and surrounding areas, and just having that group to kind of go through the years with and progress with and develop your skill and abilities. And I think that had a lot to do with it.
So you finished your career at West Virginia Wesleyan.
Yes.
And so, of course, basketball, the grind, the fun, all of it's encompassed. But you also were there to get a degree and to start figuring out what you wanted to do with your life. You came back to Roane County at what point after college?
So after I graduated from Wesleyan, I went on to WVU, which is when I got my counseling degree. And then I returned back to Roane County after that.
And you came back and you got into the school system, obviously. Now, there is kind of a theme to this. We're not going to really focus so much on your job as the adolescent health coordinator because we're talking pickleball, and this is very, very much an adult sport. Now, there are some kids involved. But obviously, you were interested enough in youth to be a counselor at a middle school. You want to talk about one of the harder jobs that you could have picked. What was it about working with kids in sometimes good, sometimes bad situations that really piqued your interest?
Yeah, I mean, working with kids has lots of challenges, but there are so many rewarding moments. And just working with them through their struggles, on their good days, on their bad days. But I think just watching them have some light bulb moments, being that person that's there for them, even if the situation can't change, just being there for them, I think that can make a world of difference in a child's life. So,
look at this guy.
Thankfully, it's not live. You get to edit this.
Yeah.
So back to middle school. So just being that person that can be there for the child through their challenging days and helping them through those moments. It's really crazy now because I've had enough students go through now that I actually see them as adults around town and being successful in whatever jobs they are in. With their own families and everything. And that's just really rewarding in and of itself, to have a student wait on you or to have a student, answer your question or help you in a store or, you see them out and about and, ask what they're doing. And that in and of itself is very rewarding.
Yeah, always getting to see the progression of the kids that you were able to work with is a great and fun and rewarding experience down the line. It's one of those, you don't always get the immediate benefits or the payoffs, but eventually you get an opportunity. I got to ask you about this real quick. Side note, I swear I'll have a point at some point, Marie. So you come from a family of print media.
I do.
Your grandparents were heavily involved in what I call an institution in Roane County, the Roane County Reporter, the Times Record. Yeah. Your grandparents heavily involved for many, many years in that. Your parents have run that for a long time now, and now your brother is involved with its print media. Never piqued your interest at all?
I really enjoy working with youth. And that's what it all came down to. I worked there for a summer, wrote some, did some other office things, but it was always just kind of working with youth. And honestly, serving with Energy Express is when I really got involved. And that was kind of that aha moment for me that, I wanted to work with youth. And not only did I want to work with youth, but I wanted to help them in ways outside of, reading, math, science, social studies.
Exactly.
I wanted to help them with those other needs as well.
One of the needs that you discovered very early on, didn't discover, you probably just had an innate sense that this was something that was very much lacking, was physical exercise with kids. So you decided to start an after-school walking program at some point with some of your kids. If people don't remember, I remember very vividly after school, I would be driving through town and all of a sudden I'd see a gaggle of 20 kids and then you with them.
Yeah, we actually had so many kids, we had to bring a high schooler on to kind of to walk with us because I couldn't necessarily keep track of them all as far as crossing the street, making sure everybody was safe. And I actually at one point had a couple kids on a waiting list because there was so many kids. But yeah, I still stand by, getting those kids out walking or doing some form of exercise and just get them talking. Sometimes I'd have a word of the day or a question of the day, something to kind of get them thinking. But a lot of days too, once we did that, they just kept that conversation going. And it was really neat because some of my classes that I did, after school classes I did, would just be for 7th and 8th graders, and the 5th and 6th graders, the younger students might not be involved. But this was 5th through 8th grade, and to see those 5th and 8th graders, have these conversations and build relationships was a really neat situation, and kids coming together that wouldn't typically be together.
Well, you tapped into something I think so important with that group, that level of kids. Speaking as a former teacher, that is one of the hardest groups to reach. Mm-hmm. That's when they shut down verbally. They don't want to talk to you. Adults, they don't. It's the beginning of the pushback phase for kids. And so you were able to, number one, get them physically active, which has all sorts of benefits. We've talked about that on the podcast. But it lets them let their guard down, because they're not in an environment of school situation. They're not having to do these facts, math, history, whatever it is. It's just giving them an opportunity to talk. And then you found out, as you said, that sometimes it was hard to get them to stop at that point.
Yeah. They were just, sometimes I would have something, okay, like based on maybe an incident that happened at school that week or something like that. Like I would have a specific topic that I wanted to address. And then sometimes it was hard to get to that because they were just, talking nonstop, which is a good problem to have, especially in that type of environment. Because like I said, they were building relationships with one another, and it was kiddos that wouldn't have been together typically.
So you're still working with kids. You transitioned from counselor at the middle school, and now you are working here with Patch 21st Century. And obviously there are a ton of children's programs. As I talk with you and I talk with Justin and I talk with Parker and all the others, they always say, well, we're just kind of limited by our ideas and the people that we need to bring in to help produce these ideas. Where in the world did pickleball come from? This is something I've heard about. Actually, I heard about a few years before it started here. And I remember thinking, what in the world is pickleball? It sounds odd. I didn't even look at it at that point. How did you guys find it, number one? And then who was the one, or was it a group effort to say, let's try this in Spencer?
Yeah. So it's funny that you bring that up. So the city of Spencer had put in a pickleball court, I don't know when, but years ago, that you rarely saw being used. Yeah. And so as you said, I was working with Patch after school and just on, doing a variety of things after school classes, wellness events, all that. And my dad had actually said, hey, why don't you ever go play pickleball? And I was like, what's pickleball? Like, nobody plays pickleball. But anyway, so later down the road, some of the Patch crew, they were playing after work, and they had three. It was Justin and Parker and Trevor were playing, and they were like, hey, we need a fourth. So anyway, so that's when I got drug. They're texting me one afternoon, hey, come play pickleball after work. And it's like, I don't play pickleball. So anyway, so needless to say, I got drug into it then. Was a little bit of a slow learner initially, I feel like. But of course, I just jumped into a game, There was no teaching. There was just, hey, you're just jumping in a game. So then we started playing, and then I think it was Trevor that was saying, hey, like, I think this could be popular. This could be popular. We should do something with it. And then I think there were just some different conversations maybe throughout the months and everything. And then we decided, winter of 2024, to actually try and offer it to the community. So we had a Monday night pickleball league where at the City of Spencer Armory, and anybody that wanted to come try it out, any age, kids, adults, could come. And the first week or two, we had over 40 people a night, and we were overwhelmed. Because I think there were 3 of us there those first few weeks, and we had all these people who didn't know how to play pickleball.
Yeah.
So we provided the nets, the gear. We had taped off, I think, 3 or 4 courts in the Armory, and so we just started going over some basics, and it just was kind of, I think initially it was like you get to play for 5 minutes, hitting it back and forth. We're not really playing a game, and then people really started getting into it.
Yes.
So so I said one night to Justin, I said, like, we have to add a second night. Like, this is too many people. Maybe we can get them split up. No, those people kept coming on the second night too. So, which was wonderful. I didn't want to say, hey, pick a night and only come one night. So we ended up with a full house Monday and Wednesday night. Monday night, we ended up doing like a little league where you had a teammate that you had picked, and you played. You were provided with a schedule, so you had a scheduled night. But then we also had lots of open play, and then Wednesday was open play and time for us to teach different things. So we would sometimes pick like, okay, let's teach serving tonight, or let's teach how to keep score. So we tried to keep like a topic to focus on throughout the nights. And I tell you, Trevor and I kept score of so many games of pickleball. I'm like, I don't want to be the one to keep track of the score, because we kept track of so many games. But now, we have a core group, and they all know the rules. They know how to keep score. They call one another out. They call me out sometimes if I have a fault. So they've kind
of just grown this organically. You guys were the catalyst to start the thing.
Yeah.
Pickleball is such an interesting sport. It's a recreational sport, but just like anything else, I was just recently watching the professional cornhole playing tournament.
Yeah.
Just like anything that starts out as recreation, somebody's going to be like, let's make a professional league out of this. So pickleball has become a huge craze. Now, it's kind of a hybrid between, if you would think about tennis and ping pong. similar in style, similar in the setup, on a smaller court, obviously, than tennis courts, just a little bit smaller. Of course, not ping pong as well.
Yeah, it's about the third of the size of a tennis court. Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think is the draw, the draw for this? Because if we're talking and we're trying to connect this to recreation, sports, wellness, health, this is a sport where you're going to move and you're going to sweat, and it's obviously good for people to move and sweat, but it is so non-restrictive, it seems to me, with the types of people who can play it. We did the tournament that you guys held last year, and there were people from 15 years. Actually, there's kids who were 10 years old, of course, Quentin's kids, but there's people from 15 years to 65 to 75 years old, and they're all able to play the sport.
Yeah. So one of the thing is the smaller court definitely helps. And I think that makes it not as, what word am I looking for? You're going to have to edit that too.
Maybe it's physically taxing. I don't know.
Yeah, the smaller court makes it less overwhelming for sure. But I have had the same thought, because running, you think about running, that's a low cost sport that you can do by yourself or with other people, but it's not for everybody. But pickleball draws in so many people, but it is a low cost sport. You don't have to go buy a nice paddle. You don't have to go buy fancy balls. You can tape off a court just about anywhere as long as you have flat ground. You can play in gyms. You can play at parks and driveways, parking lots. So I think for one thing, it's a very accessible sport.
Yeah.
So, we have people who have bought very nice paddles. We have people who are using very basic ones still. And, does the paddle make that big of a difference? I don't know.
I don't know. You got a specialized one that you brought.
Well, this is like a lower, middle of the road paddle. So, but yeah, so I think the accessibility of it for one. Also with pickleball, there's kind of a rating system. And so if you go to bigger areas to play it, you're going to see that they're going to say this court is for beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So you can go into it and kind of pick what ability level you think you are. Whereas if you show up to play basketball, just at a park, well, everybody's in the mix. So I think that also helps make it a little bit less scary for somebody to try out that's never tried it before.
Yeah, if you're going to play a sport, you'd like to actually play it a little bit. You wouldn't want to get cooked every time,
Definitely.
Skunk rules or whatever. We'll talk about some of those here in a second. But so it's accessible to everybody. It's relatively inexpensive to access. What are some of the other things that you think have really drawn people to this sport?
The social aspect of it is huge. And I've seen that in Roane County. I talk almost weekly with, people that I would have no reason to speak with otherwise. Randall Walker, Ezra Parker, Steve Saunders. I talk to these guys and I thoroughly enjoy the time that we spend in the evenings playing pickleball. Randall and I are playing in a pickleball tournament in Nitro here at the end of the month, and it's fantastic. But I think the social aspect of bringing these people together, you kind of have to wait. There's a rotation to the games. And so you wait sometimes in between games. You might wait 5 minutes. You might wait 20 minutes. So, some people walk around the park if we're at the park. So, sometimes I'll run a couple laps. Yeah. Sometimes you just stand there and talk. Yeah. So that's been a huge piece of it. I think, across the country, but really here, bringing everybody together.
I think one thing, as you were talking about that's waiting for 5 or 25 minutes, another thing that I think about that may be an ancillary benefit to this being the sport that people have chosen is it doesn't take a lot of time. The way it's set up, the way the rules of pickleball are, you can play a game relatively quickly. What I mean quickly, in 15, 20 minutes.
Yes.
And what that does is, so kind of transition into the next question that I have is, what that does is it gives people the ability to exercise but not over exert themselves.
Definitely. So you do have those breaks. Sometimes, depending on how many people are there, sometimes we play where the winners stay up for the next game. But sometimes we just do 4 off. So having the ability to kind of take those breaks that are built in, and it's not a high intensity sport at all. So that does help, and that does make it, again, not as scary for a newbie to try out because you can find people on your ability level. You can slow the game down. You don't have to go full force all the time.
Well, let's circle back here as of course, I look at these great outlines that Kim Mertz
Yes.
does for me, and then I get off topic half the time. But I want to circle back to let's talk about pickleball in general. What are the basics of pickleball? Of course, we said kind of a hybrid. Tennis, when you think of tennis, there's not a racket that I mistakenly said, but you got a paddle, but it's not the small paddle like you would think in ping pong. So you got a paddle,
Yes.
you got a ball, you got a court that you can rope off, you got a nets. Those are some of the basics. Talk about the basics, though, of pickleball.
Yeah, so you have a paddle, and this is actually an elongated paddle, so it's a little bit longer than some of them are. So you're just gonna have this basic paddle. Different ones are made out of different things. The most basic ones are made out of wood. I have no idea what this is made out of.
Some composite draw, it looks like.
Yeah. So this is the paddle that I play with. And once you find a paddle you like, you generally want to stay with it. And then the ball, which of course I have a pink ball. But they come in every color imaginable.
Yeah.
Some people hate playing with the pink balls. We play with a bright green one a lot. But this is just a very basic ball. So there are indoor and outdoor balls. The indoor balls have fewer holes and maybe a little bit bigger holes. So those are good for gym floors. But otherwise, you're just going to play with your typical outdoor ball.
Look at those, and those remind me of old wiffle balls,
Yeah.
like plastic wiffle balls. Is it the same? Is it just a plastic?
It is, but you couldn't play with a wiffle ball. I think this is thicker than a wiffle ball.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So you'd break a wiffle ball pretty easily. But and we do break these, but so sometimes when people hit them hard, they do break. But we haven't had anybody get, hurt from a ball or anything like that. So that's kind of the basic equipment that you need. Obviously, some athletic shoes. And really, you could get started with pickleball without even having a net,
Yeah.
Just having a partner that you're hitting it back and forth to, hitting it underhand back and forth to. Sometimes with kids, I've had some kids just practice hitting the ball up into the air over repeatedly, working on that hand-eye coordination and just getting used to the paddle and the ball. We do have a permanent pickleball court down at Washington Park, of course. So the next step would be just practicing hitting it back and forth over the net with a partner. And basically, you have to do an underhand serve. There are some different things there, but your serves are going to be underhand. You're going to hit diagonally to the opposite person to get that started. And then you're just going to volley it back and forth. So you hear a lot about dinking in pickleball, which is going to be an easier hit, underhand hit to the opponent. And you can move it kind of back and forth, get people backpedaling and so on. So you kind of want to watch your opponents and see where they are. Hitting it at their feet is something that can be challenging to return.
That's if you are if you're devilish and you want to try to mess with people.
Yeah. So and of course. We don't do that to beginners, but once you get good, and then you can hit it overhand. You have to be, you have an area called the kitchen that's up next to the net. You can't hit it out of the air while standing in the kitchen if it hasn't bounced, which is one of the trickier rules.
Yeah.
But you can slam it at people. And we're actually seeing that more in the pros. So before they were really focused on dinking, but they're actually starting to slam it more in the pros. So so this is a developing sport. So it's really interesting to see how it's changing. Just in the little bit of time I've kind of become aware, and not to say that I'm watching the pros a lot at home or anything, but I do try to be aware of the changes and I do try to watch some of it to learn. New things to share with people, new videos. There's tons of little clips out there to watch on drills and ways to improve your play.
Some of the things I've been most impressed with that I've come across in you watching social media are these volleys in pickleball. They become outrageous. They're so fast moving.
Yeah.
You think about mixed doubles tennis, and they'll get into those volleys back and forth where the ball just hit back, but it is even closer range. And it is chaotic sometimes, and it's so much fun to see these people go back and forth with it. And a thing that was just a recreational sport at one point has become quite the intense rivalry type of sport. One of the other things that I thought about when I was prepping for our broadcast of your all's tournament, and of course I said, I know nothing about pickleball.
Well, you do because you came to our tournament
Now
last
I do,
year.
yes. I put in about 10 or 15 hours worth of studying. What I realized is this is a relatively easy sport to learn. There are not a whole lot of rules. There's only a couple things with the serves and how the point structure works there that are okay, but once you get that down, this is there are minimal rules to this game.
Yeah, it's considered easy to learn and hard to master.
Yes.
So, which is why it's, again, so great and so accessible, because once you get the rules down, you can hop in a game and play. We always encourage at our patch events to, if you're playing with somebody that's not as strong of a player as you, to be respectful. So you're not going to slam it at them or hit it at their feet every time, be mindful of who you're playing. But yeah, it's just an easy sport to get into, I think.
Unless you're Angie Simons. I think she would be very fiendish when she's a very intense pickleball player.
Yes.
So let's talk about the impact that you've seen just in the couple of years here in Roane County since you guys have instituted this pickleball, now Winter League, and of course the summer play as well.
Yeah. So this winter, when we had, crazy snow and cold temperatures and ice and all that, we were playing at the Armory, and people were coming out and doing physical activity instead of staying at home, holed up and all that. There were a couple times when I definitely wanted to cancel because of the weather, because I didn't want to leave my house. But, those text messages come through and those people are wanting to play. So it's, yep, I'll be there.
Yeah, sometimes you be careful what you wish for, because you'll create some pretty chaotic monsters out there in a good way. They're trying to be athletic. They're trying to work out.
And it is a wonderful problem to have. And that's what I have said, even when there's been days, like I said, when it's like, got to go to pickleball. It's worth it, because we have people from, 8, 9 years old to in their 70s that are coming out together and enjoying something, whereas what else would people be doing? Would they be on their devices? Would they be sitting at home alone? How would they be spending their time? And we're giving them an outlet. When we have our events, we're giving them that outlet to come and socialize and exercise as well.
What we're trying to do, obviously, is connect everything that happens in our community to the original theme of our podcast, which is for your health, prescription for your health. When we talk to the CEO, Doug Bentz, a lot of the times he says the number one goal of the program that they did here, and I think also the number one goal of them as a community member, helping out with Patch and Jack Garrett and on all the community people, he always says the goal is to improve your quality of life. Whatever that means, wherever you start from, it does not matter. The goal is to find ways to improve the quality of your life. Obviously, pickleball is one of those great outlets that has really risen. It's found a really nice niche here in Roane County, and of course, people continue to come to the sport. Physically, it's great for people, beginners all the way through advanced athletes. It gives kids an opportunity to be athletic and active. Get them started early if you can. But if you don't, that's fine. You can still bring people in. It's, as you said, not too taxing physically. The mental, it all comes together. We all talk about this all the time. Physical activity improves your mental health.
Definitely.
Your mental health improves your spiritual well-being. It's all encompassed in one thing. The social aspect is very important for people who maybe, as you said, are more isolated most of the time. Gives people an opportunity to come out and engage in conversation with other people. That is something, as you mentioned, people being in their tablets, people, we are living in a society, without getting on my soapbox too much here, that is increasingly isolated, and it is made so by pretty good advances in technology. You think about it. You could order Uber Eats to your house, never even see the person who brings it to you. You could pull up a book on your Kindle. You could watch a movie from your house. You could never leave your house, and a lot of people fall prey to that. So your job, and Patch, and even the youth, but into the adult phase of all these things, your all's job is to try to get people to touch grass, right? Get out and see things.
Definitely, yeah. Just trying to get people to try new things. We do the race series, and it's not really about the race aspect, though. We have some teenagers that come, which is wonderful, and they do really get into the race aspect, and I applaud anybody who does, but really it's just about getting outside and, being with other people, developing that sense of community, and doing something fun and enjoyable.
Speaking of fun and enjoyable, are you still running? Are you still training for any half marathons?
So, I had an injury last fall that I've really had a hard time with getting over. So, but I'm not 100% past it, but I did a race at the end of April, the Great Greenbrier River race. Yeah, the Great Greenbrier River race, which is a run paddle bike. So I didn't do as well as I did last year, but I still did pretty well. So it was a lot of fun. It's a great day. And again, that sense of community, it's in Marlinton.
Yeah.
Not a lot going on in Marlinton, but let me tell you what, people show up for race day. I believe there were over 300 people that participated in the race. So.
Well, West Virginia is well known for recreation, outdoor sports, outdoor recreation, and you guys here in Roane County have brought that in many different ways. Pickleball being one of these great things that's just happenstance. You guys created, three of you decided, let's try it.
Yeah.
It's exploded. It's going to continue to be a big thing here in Roane County. You guys got a lot of things on the docket. I'll ask you to finish with what's up next for pickleball and how could people get involved in it?
Okay, yeah, that is a great question. So how to get involved? Right now, we don't have a league. So we save the league play where we open the armory up during certain nights of the week for the winter when there's not a lot of other options going on. But we still have people who are regularly playing at Washington Park in the evening. So typically Monday through Thursday evenings from 5 o'clock on, you can see people playing pickleball. I showed up last night at 8:30 and they were there playing, and then some of them left, but two stayed, and my partner and we played, a couple games until about 10 o'clock.
Yeah, the lights are on, by the way, at Washington Park now.
The lights are on, yes. And the city of Spencer actually put in lights specifically on the pickleball court, which have been fantastic. We really, really appreciate all of their support in this as well.
Yeah.
So the city of Spencer has been wonderful in helping grow this too. So if you're wanting to learn, though, going to the park Monday through Thursday in the evening, you can typically see a group of people there. And then Sunday afternoons is another popular time. Not to say that there can't be people there other times, because there definitely can be. That's just like the core group. Those are the most popular times. You can contact the patch office, and if I'm not available to help teach you some things, then I can set you up with somebody that's in our group that is willing to help others, because we have a couple people that are really excited about getting anybody else involved that wants to be. So definitely reach out to me at Patch, and I will connect you with somebody if I don't help you myself. And we will have some tournaments this summer. So that's kind of our summer plans. Is we have found that the tournaments have been pretty popular. We actually have people who come from Parkersburg, Braxton County, Marietta to play in these tournaments. And our tournaments, you can get into the levels, as I mentioned earlier, which we won't get into too much today, but a lot of the tournaments are based on those ability levels. Our tournaments are a little bit different. They're open to anybody that wants to play. So we do stress that to the higher level players because they will be disappointed. But it has been really good, we've found, and that's how we've attracted some out-of-town people, because they've never played in a tournament. They're scared to go play in one of these other tournaments, so they come try us out, and they say they have a blast. So we've gotten some really good feedback from people even out of town. So that's been pretty neat to see us get to know others as well.
The meteoric rise of what is known as pickleball. Marie Hedges, thank you very much for the information. And again, if you guys have any questions or you want to get involved in pickleball, call the patch office. What's the number for that?
927-8047.
8047. I should know that stuff by now, as many times as I've talked with Patch. Marie, keep doing what you guys are doing. Obviously, you guys are changing lives in Roane County, whether you know it or not. You're getting people more and more involved in being active and trying to improve their quality of life, and that is what it's all about. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Drew.